special guest for you. Sarah Dyble, who is a sort of a social worker in the UK and has been doing some extraordinary things with people in the Birmingham Library with botanicals and all kinds of stuff in the Birmingham Shakespeare Room at the top of this amazing library.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Okay, so I was just introducing you and talking about the strawberry that grows underneath the nettle. The line that you chose to I guess kind of umbrella, is that the name of the exhibition?
It is
Actually?
yeah, it's the name of the exhibition, but it was also initially it was a line that was used in one of the workshops.
Oh, okay.
But then yeah, and then it was the line that you chose when you did the interview without even knowing. So we've both kind of chosen it together off our
Yeah,
own.
so let's start at the beginning. I've said a little bit about, but I really haven't said so much about so Sarah has started this exhibition in the Shakespeare Room of the Birmingham Library. And talking to you and talking about Birmingham might make me drop into an English accent just because it's fun and that's what happens. But but
And I
there's
apologise because I would love to do this from Birmingham in the actual exhibition, but I'm actually doing it from my very dilapidated house that's in the middle of being plastered. So I'm very sorry. You have some authentic building work behind you, but
oh,
never
well,
mind.
that's exciting too. The strawberry grows underneath the nettle. So
Exactly.
underneath
Yeah.
the nettle of the plastering, we're going to
Yeah.
find the strawberry. But the exhibition is in this Birmingham library, top of the library, dedicated. It's called the Shakespeare Room, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, talk a little bit about who you work with and how this developed.
Okay, so I work for a charity. It's called Birmingham Centre for Arts Therapies. It was founded to give art, music, drama, dance, or play therapy, whatever people needed, in 1993 to give as much of that to the people of Birmingham as needed it. And it was a kind of we charge, but if you can't pay, let us know what you can pay, and we'll still give you therapy.
Right.
That was how they operated. And then when I started volunteering for them long before I actually got paid work with them, but I was always a community arts facilitator because in the UK, if you want to do therapy, you need license. And I don't know how it is in the US, but you have to be licensed. So I do workshops in all areas of the community. I've never trained as a therapist, but I go into libraries, I work with families, basically community centres work the best. So at the moment, it's the little grassroots libraries that have stayed open during lockdown.
Really?
Um,
Oh, good.
yeah, and that's where I or they were some of the first things to reopen, and they're getting people back in. It's so And I do workshops that aren't therapy, but if you get a load of people together and you do arts together, or you do songs together, you do singing together, you do drama together, which obviously wasn't possible during the depths of the pandemic, but it's what people missed much more than they expected to miss. Um,
Amazing.
yeah, and that's what I do. And it often does have quite a therapeutic effect, even though it's not billed as therapy. So the aim of this project was to kind of to do these workshops that would then reconnect the people of Birmingham with Shakespeare, because people in Birmingham don't really think that Shakespeare's for them. Most of them haven't been to university. Some of them can't read and write. Some of them have got English as a second language, or they've been told at school that they were rubbish at reading and they've never touched a book since. So yeah, this is the kind of people that I work with. So the challenge was to show them that Shakespeare is for everyone.
It breaks my heart when people are told you can't have this, you can't get this, you can't understand this, because if you get over the little hump,
Yeah.
Again, it's again, the strawberry grows underneath the nettle. I guess we're going to pound that. If you get over the little hump of resistance, whatever that is, whether it's this is a hard place to grow, or there's an obstacle that stings or is difficult, or there's plastering or whatever it is, then this world opens up to you. But you mentioned some of them are immigrants, some of them have English as a second language, some of them, I mean, where do these people come from, and how do they just come to the libraries or the community centers? How do they come together and find you?
Well, that was the first Nettle, if you like, because the libraries used to be this sort of community hub. I mean, in the UK, no one has to pay to use a library, so you can go in, you can use the internet for free, you can use the computers, you can borrow books, you can meet people, you can sit and chat. There are tables, there's all sorts of social clubs that take place there, especially in the smaller libraries. They are just little hives of activities, or they should be. And you can go and get help getting a job because the librarians will help you. A lot of the librarians, they really reach out to members of the community. So one of my libraries where I worked, one of the best ones, they really knew their participants, they knew their communities. So when I kid you not, right? So when I was doing the adults workshops, they would actually phone the adults who were due to come in the morning and say, hey, do you remember you were going to come and do a workshop today?
And these libraries then become these kind of a magnet for allowing community and allowing things to flourish and foster. It seems to me like you're kind of curating, correct me if I'm wrong, how to direct these energies. Would that be okay?
Yeah, and the libraries were, always a place that people could come to. They can meet people, they could have friendly faces helping them out. And then during the pandemic, suddenly the doors of the library were shut, and it was like, no, you can't come here anymore. We're shut, COVID, sorry. And COVID was meant to go on for like 6 weeks, and it went on in the UK, it went on for 2 years.
Yeah.
And when the libraries did open their doors again, people were like, don't trust this place. Like, is it safe for me to go there? Because I've not been for so long. And, the people who were using the libraries were always, often they were quite vulnerable, or they'd be people who didn't have places to go in the day. So they would be the first people who would feel frightened of going back, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
So that's been the first Nettle to kind of conquer. It's been just getting people back to do these workshops, and then getting over the Shakespeare language, because when I put down growing Shakespeare on the poster, they were like, yeah, we want to come to the library, but we don't want to do that. We don't do Shakespeare. I couldn't do Shakespeare at school. I don't want to be told I'm rubbish again. I was told I was rubbish when I was 14. I don't want to pick up a Shakespeare book and be reminded of being told I was rubbish,
Mm-hmm.
So then I took away, then I was like, right, okay, this is a bit of a difficult one, so because I'm being paid to deliver a Shakespeare project, and I'm not able to use Shakespeare with the people who I'm meant to be reaching out to, and it's hard enough to get people to come to the library, let alone scaring them off again,
Right.
So I was like, right, well, I don't have to say Shakespeare's name at the start of the session. Yeah, don't have to at all. My theme's plants, and Shakespeare uses a lot of plants that relate to everyday life. So I was like, right, okay, how can I share plants with people? We can get Shakespeare in there later. Let's just get people talking about plants. This is cool.
Yeah.
So, and getting people talking about things that they know is always your best bet, because if they're talking about something that's interesting to them, then they're interested and they stay.
Yeah.
And then I gave them some quotes from Shakespeare, and each quote related to a fruit. And I didn't tell them a character or the play or anything. I would just say, right, okay, hit him over the, knock him over the costard and throw him in the Moundsy butt. What fruit is that related to? What is a costard?
Excellent. Oh, I love
And
that.
so they matched the fruits to the quotes, or they worked it out. I said, work with work with the person. So we started with little games, and then I said, what memories have you got related to those herbs? Have you ever used them? And then everyone started talking. And with the game, we matched up quotes relating to apples, like the costard is an apple. The strawberry grows under the nettle was another one that I used. And then
There's an apple.
Exactly.
An apple. And I have to say, I was pushing Sarah on the medlar fruit. As you know, I've been like really pushing the medlar, because that would stump them, because I always think British people know what it is, but they don't. And these, do you know what these are off the top of your head?
Are they quinces or are they pears?
They are. Yes, they're
quinces. Yeah.
So yeah, I think our impetus is the same. I've often, I wouldn't say assaulted, but I've had taxi drivers who say, "Oh no, I don't understand Shakespeare. It's my daughter had it in school, but I don't get it." And I would pull out the book, and there's the book, and say, well, here's a violet. You know what a violet is? And he's like, "Oh, well, yes, I know what a violet is," and read the line, and I'm saying, "You understand that?" "Well, yes, I understand that." I'm like, you do understand this, but you have to come in exactly like you're saying, with something familiar, and making it fun.
One of the ones that was really popular in this game was an apple cleft in two is not more alike than those two creatures.
Right.
And we talked about what that meant, and I was saying, pick a quote that relates to your experiences. And so I was like, oh yeah, well, you can imagine standing at the bus stop, can't you? And you've got your friend there. Have you seen her new two baby boys? Oh, they are so alike. An apple cleft in two could not be more alike than those two creatures. Whereas, I mean, and I said, write down a scenario like that, like use the quote in a way that you can relate to. And they started writing. And then when I did the evaluation forms at the end of the session, they said, oh, I didn't realize that I discovered I could write. And so that's been what's come out of the project. And that was our way into Shakespeare, because like you were saying with your taxi drivers, it's not about throwing it in people's faces. It's about finding just a small way, to this day, I still don't know what play all these quotes are from, and perhaps I should, but I never studied Shakespeare properly either. My mum's the one with the literature degree, and I always felt a bit baffled by Shakespeare. But in doing the research for this project, I have found it a lot of little corners that I connect with. I feel like I'd need a lifetime to understand a lot of it, but
right. That's why it never goes out of fashion or style. I mean, I think it's people, when they discover it, when they find somebody who's there like you to help them find a path in, it is a lifelong thing. There have been, high level, whatever, highfalutin scholars who have studied it their whole lives, and they still don't get it. And yet these little pieces broken down, like the apple cleft in two, like the violet, like the quince and the medlar and all that stuff, can open up something in your mind, in your brain, in your heart. The strawberry that grows underneath the nettle, if you just think about it, it's almost a mantra or a meditation when you're having a hard time, that there is a strawberry underneath this. There is. And you said something about vulnerable groups. What kind of vulnerable groups are you working with?
People with mental health conditions. Most of my groups happen in the daytime. So the adult sessions and then the children's sessions happen either after school. So there's been two strands to the project. because we got funding to work with two like groups, and one of them was families and the other was adults. And the
Mhm.
adult groups, 12:30 till 2 on a Monday afternoon, most adults are going to be working. A lot of adults will be at work. So the adults who you would expect to come to your sessions are either retired, so they're over 60, might be living alone, might be lonely, might be struggling a bit, especially after the pandemic, might be have vulnerable health conditions,
Yeah.
or they might not have a job, be out of work. They might be within like a lot younger, like of working age, but be out of work for various reasons. They might have kids, so they might be alone, having to look after the kids, single parents. They might have dropped the kids off at school and not have anywhere to go. So the groups, the mix of people who come are not your, oh yeah, I'm an accountant and I can conquer the world and I've got loads of money. It's more people who really need those community libraries, because
Yeah.
at home they've not got the money to have their own computer.
Right, right. Well, and
Um,
also I think it like you said, it they didn't know they could write, or they didn't know this or that, and it sparks a self-knowledge in them of empowerment, wouldn't you say?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
So,
great. I mean, I think it was helpful to me as well to realize that actually for this project, I didn't need to understand the whole of Shakespeare either. I only needed to find little corners that I could help people connect with.
yeah.
And I think for them as well, Shakespeare's not this great big king. It's something for the people. And that's essentially what the aim of the project was to do, was to say, look, there is a little bit of Shakespeare that is connected with every single person in Birmingham. And in the Birmingham Library, in the Shakespeare archives, there are 100,000 objects. So the aim of this project was to find a way to connect these objects with the people of Birmingham, because no one living in Birmingham knows that they're even there. And that was the aim of the
Wow.
project. That's why I was brought in to do this. And the books that are in the archives, in the actual Shakespeare archives, they're original. So we've got Gerard's Herbal, which is too precious to be in that room on display. So we've got scanned pages from that, which
Okay.
were and the plants, the willow plants on those scan pages were an inspiration for the mono printing. So they've done like some printing,
Hmm.
and monoprinting is where every print is unique,
Hmm.
and they've printed the plants. They've drawn their own versions of the willow plants.
Hmm.
There's 7 different types of willow as well, and then they shared stories about their own willows as well.
Wow.
Then there's a case of books from the archives. So we've got 5 actual books, because some of them are Victorian.
Right.
Um, and then in the last case, there are clay sculptures and a picture of one of the books. So I live in London and I couldn't get to Birmingham during the pandemic. So there is a book that I found in a library in Croydon that was the same text as is in the archives, discussing the plants in Shakespeare. And it's Leo Grinden's, it's called the Shakespeare Flora. And it's kind of a Victorian dictionary of all the plants in Shakespeare, but very insightful and very up to date in the way that it's written. You wouldn't really guess it was written in the Victorian times. I didn't get to visit the Shakespeare Room due to the pandemic until September this year, and the
Hmm.
workshops have been going on since May. So I'd been kind of, yeah, it was a very challenging thing to plan workshops on things that you're not allowed to see.
Yeah.
So when I did get into the Shakespeare Room in September, I was just so excited and I took my phone out. But what I was excited by wasn't the big, massive plaster of Paris ceiling, because it's beautiful, it's Victorian and ornate, and the room's very striking. But the the whole room, the woodwork, because it was made in Victorian times, the hinges on the cupboards are carved like sunflowers. Even
Oh.
right by floor level. So
Yeah.
I started taking photos of the cupboard hinges and the doorknobs and the catches on the cupboards, because I was like, these are so beautiful. And the wooden carvings inlaid, every cupboard door has got a little like wooden plant work in it. And I was like, well, these are beautiful, and these are plants, and these are all
Mhm.
part of the Shakespeare room. And
Yeah.
then I took them home and I printed them out. And in the workshop the next week, I said, hey, I've been to the Shakespeare room. Finally, the public weren't allowed in. And I showed them all these photos, and I bought a load of clay in, and they made all these moldings out of clay.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
they made the sunflowers out of clay, the hinges. And they obviously, it was my surprise to them that I've been there, but then it's always a two-way thing, and they give you more than you give them, because this lady, I was like, who didn't have much English, she said, I need a board, I need a piece. And I said, well, how do you, like, she said, I need to put it like this. And I realized that she'd made the reason why she wanted to put it like this, and she wanted a card to support it. I said, if it dries like that, it will stick up. And she
Mhm.
said, yes, I need it to stick up. And she'd made the hinge of the cupboard door, and she wanted it to dry so the door
Oh,
looked like, so she made this flower. So that's in the exhibition too, is the case of all their clay. And so if you go to the exhibition, you can try and guess where each bit of clay, which bit of the room it links up with. But
well, I
um,
know that our book came late in the process of your sort of putting this whole thing together, and it was making me think. Like, I love the people coming into their own idea of what, making the art of. Like I said, one of my favorite pieces of art that you sent is this tree. I just love it.
mm,
It reminds me of King Lear. It reminds me of Hymen of Athens, a bunch of stuff. Horace Warden, maybe. And how Shakespeare always meets you where you live. I've always wanted the book to be a springboard, a diving board into your creativity, not an end, but a beginning.
well,
So
I think that was why I was so excited to meet you, because I mean, I'd been reading your book for quite some time. First of all, I heard your podcast.
uh,
And then after that, I was like, wow, I should check out this book. And I managed to find the book, and I got the book in a London library too. Your book was in
oh,
a
great.
London library.
Excellent.
Again, it's a one these London libraries are wonderful things. And then I was like, well, if I'm using all these quotes from Garrett's book, I should really like just contact her and see whether she's all right with that. And then I was like, I'm sure she'll be this too important author to actually get back to me. But at least if I've sent the email and I've asked for permission to use the stuff, then I've done my job. I've acknowledged it. And if not, I'll just write a nice acknowledgement to the book and put it in the exhibition as that I've used quotes from this work of, this wonderful book. And thank you very, like, even if I haven't ever, I've done my best to get permission and to acknowledge the help that this book's
Well, they're
given me.
Shakespeare's quotes, so
And
they're
then
public
bang,
domain. Yeah.
comes back this email from Garrett saying, oh yeah, I'd love to be involved, it sounds like a great project. And so suddenly I was like, oh, there's an author who's like a famous author who's from the States, who's actually interested enough in what I'm doing, and that's wonderful. And then the fact that you'd written your book to basically connect with the people of Birmingham. Well, not the people of Birmingham, the people of wherever the world. And I was doing a project to connect Shakespeare with the people of Birmingham, but essentially people everywhere. The book's great, you go all over the place doing this. This was amazing for me. And I don't think you realized that when I first met you. But yeah, so that's kind of where your book came in. And then meeting you was just like, wow, it was almost like validating everything that I'd struggled to do, validating the reason I'd gone through all these nettles, because in my line of work, you can come up against so many barriers. You think
Yeah.
maybe these people aren't responding, maybe I'm doing something wrong. And like, community arts is getting more popular now. There's a lot more recognition that doing art or reading books or talking to people is beneficial for people's well-being and mental health and all of that, and that's valued. But because they've not got the money and they've not got the reason to do it, or they've not got the opportunity or the confidence, a lot of them haven't been into the town centre of Birmingham
Right.
since before the pandemic. And that's a long time.
Yeah.
And that's a very small world to live in. So again, it's empowering people and telling them to, saying, oh, you should make that trip in the city centre. You can travel now. You can go and see your work in an important building. That's cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Go and do that. And it's free. Everything is free for everybody, which is the other essential thing. If anyone is in Birmingham, if they want to come and see the exhibition, it's open. Whenever the Shakespeare room is open, you can just walk in and see it. It's not a very big exhibition, but yeah, you're welcome to see it. And there will be a digital version of it
Oh,
afterwards.
fantastic. That was my question. So, all right, Sarah, from, my heart to your fantastic creative brain and big heart, I'm so grateful for you doing this. I'm so grateful for you coming on Shakespeare Therapy to talk about it, because what you actually are doing embodies the Shakespeare Therapy idea.